This is the Reviewing Network Live, a weekly stream of consciousness recording session where I sit back with you folks out there, talk about some of the big news stories from the past week, and some other things I found that might be of amusement to you out there. I think you might get a kick out of it. Now, these are more like audio podcasts and are much longer than my usual videos and are also, for the most part, unedited and will contain some foul language. So, if you're easily offended by that, I advise you to maybe step back a bit, maybe go somewhere else. But hey, if you're up to the challenge, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Thanks. And for the 32nd time ever, we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Reviewing Network Live, a very truncated down version of the Reviewing Network Live this week, because this week was still CityCon. And if you saw what I did back in December, I did a very truncated down version of that show because, that show does take a whole lot out of you, along with some other things that we had to deal with over the last couple of weeks and months. It's very tiring on your body, and Still CityCon usually is a very, very tough thing to get through on Thursday because you have to bring everything up there, you have to set everything up, you're there for several hours, and then Sunday night, when the show is over, you have to take all that stuff back that you didn't sell, and you have to take it back to where you had it before. So we're all very tired. My family's very tired. It was a very tiring weekend, but I am glad to see that this was not the last show there. They're gonna keep doing it because now the convention center has been saved. The hotel was not saved. I talk about that in the latest Movie Stuff episode on the other channel. So if you want to go check that out, that should be up by the time the time this episode goes up. But yeah, this is going to be a very short episode of the Reviewing Network Live. We're going to take a look at the weekend box office, and I'll have my review for Woodpecker Goes to Camp, which I finally saw yesterday on Netflix. I say finally, but it just came out on Friday, and that'll be the thing that will replace the recommendation for this week, because there's really not anything that notable to recommend this week in terms of new releases coming up in the next week or so. But we'll talk about that. That'll be the one thing that'll be included in this particular episode. But as always, we start off with the weekend box office. So let's go ahead and start the conversation off by looking at the top 5, the weekend box office this week, and nothing too surprising, except maybe the number one movie. Maybe I kind of underestimated how big this movie was going to be, but let's talk about the top 5. Moving back up one spot from number 6, that was out of the top 5 last week, was Dune Part 2, which means that one of the movies that from last week had to drop out, and that unfortunately was Monkey Man, the Dev Patel movie, which unfortunately dropped 60% from last week, $4.1 million, $17.7 million. So that's the bad news. The good news is it only cost them $10 million to make, so they've already made their money back on that. So it sucks that it was very front-loaded, but at the same time, they made their money back, so they're good to go on that front. But number 5 this week was Dune Part 2, moving up one spot. $4.3 million, dropping 42%, $272.1 million after 7 weeks. I mean, what more can you say about this movie that hasn't already been said already? $683 million worldwide. Most of these are movies that we've covered already. So number 4, moving up from 5 last week, Kung Fu Panda 4, which dropped only 29%, $5.5 million, taking advantage of the fact that there's no fake family films out there. $5.5 million, dropping only 30%, $173.6 million. Worldwide gross is now up to $452 million worldwide. The movie only cost $85 million, so they are good to go on that front. Number 3, how fitting because Ernie Hudson was here this weekend at Comic-Con. Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, $5.8 million, only dropping 35.6%. It actually stayed put at number 3, so I am glad that it is sticking around. It isn't a movie that's completely dropping out, but then again, it could have something to do with the fact that there hasn't been a whole lot of movies to really push it out of the top 5, but $5.8 million this weekend, bringing its gross up to $96.9 million. Probably should have hit $100 million by next weekend. The worldwide gross is basically $160 million worldwide so far, which, it did make back its budget, so I guess there's that, but with a movie like this, you kind of expected more in terms of the box office, especially considering how the last movie ended up doing. Let me see what the worldwide for Ghostbusters Afterlife was. I mean, it's not too far off, $204.3 million worldwide, so it's not completely off of it, and it's not completely off to where they can't make that money back. I mean, they'll probably they've made the budget back, and it probably will make its money back in the long run. And we're probably going to see another movie. Which I'd be glad to see another movie from them. But yeah, you could tell that if you were here at Steel City Con this weekend, you could tell that there was a lot of Ghostbusters fans there. Mostly because Ernie Hudson was there, but there were a lot of them there. There was a lot of stuff there, and yeah. So I'm glad to see that Ghostbusters still has a loyal fan base to it. So. With that said, let's move on to the number 2 movie this week. Number 1 last week, which I really thought was going to be number 1 for the rest of the month, which it could probably still do because I don't think there's anything significant opening up next weekend or the weekend after that. And I think the next big action movie coming out is The Fall Guy, which will kick off the summer movie season. But Godzilla X Kong: New Empire dropped off from number 1 to number 2 this week. $15.4 million. 50% drop off, $157.9 million. The worldwide gross for this was $436 million worldwide, so big hit for them. They're making their money back. And which brings us to the movie that I did not expect to do as well as it did. But ladies and gentlemen, A24 has welcome to the number 1 movie club. I mean, your first number 1 movie of all time, and that is, of course, Civil War, which is the new Alex Garland movie. $25.7 million, which is about half its budget, $50 million. And if you don't know about this movie, it's a movie where you have a team of journalists who travel across the United States during a rapidly escalating Second American Civil War, which has engulfed the nation. And they show you the maps of, where these specific areas are. Texas and California are the Western forces. Pennsylvania, Chicago, is pretty much everywhere from Maine all the way to Nevada is the Loyalist states. The Montana, Milwaukee, Seattle, Washington, that's the New People's Army. There's the Florida Alliance. So there is a lot to delve into with this particular movie. And unfortunately, I did not get to see it, obviously, because of the Comic-Con. But it premiered very well with critics. It did very well critically. 83% on Rotten Tomatoes. Metacritic, 77 out of 100. The cinema score is only B-, which probably means that the film will probably... It's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out, because this is a movie that, like I said, it's the first A24 movie to become the number 1 movie at the box office, and that's unheard of. I mean, it topped Hereditary as the biggest opening in their history, which, Hereditary wasn't like a massive box office hit, but it surprised everybody of how much money that it made. But it's interesting, the reactions too, because it's really a movie that, from what I've seen from it, it's not. It doesn't. It's a weird thing. It's offending a specific group of people, and yet it's not doing it at the same time. It's not picking sides in any way, shape, or form. And it's a movie that I think really is really setting itself up for something very interesting that we haven't seen in a while. A thinking man's movie. Like, it's a movie that is trying its hardest for the controversy and disappointment for the specific audiences. Like I said, it feels like a film that doesn't really know which side it's picking, and it wants you to choose yourself. And I like that idea. I like that Alex Garland can make this into an idea that could work that way. This is a guy who's made a ton of fantastic movies as a writer and director. He did 28 Days Later, of course. He wrote Dread. He directed Ex Machina, Annihilation. Men was not his best film overall, but I've been hearing a lot of interesting things about this movie, so I'm definitely curious to check this one out at some point. Kirsten Dunst got a lot of high praise for this movie too. I mean, you got her, Kaylee Spaney, Nick Offerman is the president of the United States. I mean, Axe Cop's the president of the United States. What more can you say about that? But yeah, $25.7 million, which is really good for this movie. I'm very curious to see how this is going to be going forward, because it has the possibility to be a very front-loaded film, but it probably should make its budget back. I mean, the buzz and the word of mouth on this is so strong, and in terms of the people that like it, and then also the people that really don't like it. So it's a movie that I feel like I said, it's definitely a movie that's going to make you think, and also make you decide which side you should really be on in this situation here. And like I'm getting a lot of Purge vibes too, because except this is probably the Purge done better, because the Purge had an interesting idea to it, but the execution, at least in the first movie, basically kind of put it into a generic slasher movie element that didn't really have anything that interesting or engaging to say. But once the second movie came around, and the second, third, and fourth movie came around, that's where those movies really began to take off. But like I said, I'm very curious to see how this one will turn out with the Civil War. So definitely looking forward to checking it out at some point. It probably won't be the next weekend, but because next weekend is the release of Abigail, the new vampire movie from Universal. Their third in the last year, which they really love their vampires, I guess, because this, like I said, it's the third one being released in the last year. Of course, the first two being Renfield and Last Voyage of the Demeter. The second one being the better of the two. And one other noteworthy thing in the box office, Shrek 2 was re-released for 1 week only. Did decent numbers, $1.3 million, which is much more than Disney's Pixar's 3 re-releases they had earlier in the year. You know, Luca, Turning Red, Soul. This thing did a whole lot better, and there was a little bit more of a push in advertising, mostly because it was on front of Kung Fu Panda 4 when you had the trailer for it. And if you go to movie theaters, I know my movie theater had the poster for it in the walkway to the theater, so there was a little bit more of a word of mouth in this situation with this particular film. So Shrek 2 adds another $1 million to it, and I thought that was also noteworthy. Other than that, though, nothing else too significant in terms of like the newer releases that came out. Civil War was pretty much the big one for this week. So with that said, that is the weekend box office. So let's go ahead and take a look at the review that I have for you. I'll be quick on it. It's Woody Woodpecker Goes to Camp. See, what really sucks about a week like this is because we also had CinemaCon this weekend, and there were so many big stories that I really was hoping to cover. Like, the big stories about what Paramount was doing with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the fact that they're doing an R-rated live-action Ninja Turtles movie, and it's The Last Ronin that they're doing. I thought was pretty interesting, pretty cool, and I really am curious to see how that will pan out. Paramount had a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. A lot of them did. I mean, it was a very busy week in terms of, like, things that they showed off. Like, Disney showed off Deadpool and Wolverine. They showed off Moana 2, a little bit of Inside Out 2, Alien Romulus. We got our first look at Mufasa, the Lion King, which, as much as I was one of those people that liked I was one of those few people that actually didn't mind the 2019 remake. The fact that it looks like it's not looking like they're doing anything different compared to the first movie has me worried, even though this is a great director. Excuse me. A great director in Barry Jenkins. But, I don't know. This one feels like it's going to be very much like the last movie, which could peeve a lot of people off. Lionsgate showed off some stuff. They talked about how Ballerina, the John Wick spinoff, is going to be more closely resembling what a John Wick movie will look like, to the point where they'll have Keanu Reeves in there, because this takes place in between the third and the fourth movie. They also pushed back the Crow reboot that got pushed back to August. They showed off Borderlands. They showed off the first glimpse of Michael Jackson, the biopic. Paramount was very busy. They showed off If, which the trailer for that looked pretty good. Gladiator 2 they showed off. Transformers 1, the trailer's supposed to be coming out this week. I'm definitely looking forward to see what they do with that. Quiet Place Day 1. I mean, that's what I'm definitely looking forward to seeing in June. And like I said, Ninja Turtles, they're going to be doing The Last Ronin, which I think is pretty awesome. They announced several different remakes, a Bee Gees biopic, a new Damien Chazelle movie. They're remaking The Running Man with Glenn Powell, which I think will be interesting to see nonetheless. Universal showed off some stuff. They showed off some stuff like Wicked, Despicable Me 4, Twisters, and that's pretty much all they showed off, except for a little bit of Nosferatu. And I'm really curious to see how Nosferatu is going to turn out. Warner Brothers, I think, surprisingly had the best overall panel this whole week, because they showed off the Joker 2 trailer, which left a lot of people very curious to how that was going to pan out. The word of mouth on Superman, the Superman documentary about Christopher Reeve is really, really good, which I'm hearing a lot of good things about. Beetlejuice, Michael Keaton literally said it's the best effing movie he's ever seen. He said it's a great effing movie. But he'd probably say it's the best movie he's ever seen, but I don't know. I'm still on the fence about it, but a guy says something like that, it's just like, okay, you're Michael Keaton, I'll listen to anything you say. They showed off a little bit of Mickey 17. We didn't get to see anything for Superman, the new James Gunn version of Superman. So again, a lot of stuff I really would have liked to have covered this week, but of course I couldn't do that because of the Comic-Con. Big stories all over entertainment. I mean, Francis Ford Coppola's wife died. She was the one person that made Hearts of Darkness one of the best documentaries of all time possible. O.J. Simpson is dead, and there's a lot you could say about that. But I guess with O.J. Simpson, I'll say this. Don't think of it as being glad that O.J. Simpson is dead, which you probably should. Just think about it, the fact that it's sad that Nordberg is no longer with us, because, that's what I love about the Naked Gun movies, is that he had O.J. Simpson. Look, say what you will about the crimes that he clearly did. I mean, there's no denying that he did a lot of stupid things, but the Naked Gun movies show that the guy has a lot of charisma and talent to him, and yeah, unfortunately, he kind of screwed the pooch on that. I still can't believe that he was almost the Terminator. Like, how different the world would have been if he had done that after he became the Terminator. That would have made this whole thing, that would have made that whole franchise come off very, very differently if that was the case. But I'll just say this, like, anybody that says that I didn't kill my wife, but if I did kill my wife, here's a book and here's a TV special on Fox where I'm going to talk about how I killed my wife. Like, yeah, you clearly did it. I'm sorry. Like, I just like, if you were really that serious that you didn't kill your wife and you're looking for the real killers, then why the hell are you going out putting books out and putting on TV specials saying, I didn't do it, but here's how I would have done it if it was me. Just like, you're hiding something, man. Like, I mean, he did eventually get his somewhat comeuppance. I mean, like, he did eventually get sentenced for a crime that wasn't killing his wife, and he got cancer in the end. So I guess karma bit him in the ass big time. But yeah, like I said, a lot of interesting news stories that I really wish I would have liked to have covered this week, but I fortunately could not have done that because of the Comic-Con. So all right, so I kind of went off topic for that one, but let's go ahead and get to what I want to talk about, and that is Woody Woodpecker Goes to Camp. So there's a reason why I'm covering this. A couple of reasons. One, I like the character of Woody Woodpecker. I feel like Woody Woodpecker got screwed over by Universal, because the longest time he was their main mascot. I mean, like, he was the centerpiece of Universal Studios. You could go to they made theme park areas based off of Woody Woodpecker. He's all over Universal's logos, or at least he was until the Minions came around. And then someone at Universal said, we like these Minions better. We're gonna push Woody Woodpecker off the site so much, and we're gonna make him just as obnoxious and put him in the worst possible movie, so that people will completely forget that Woody Woodpecker is a great character in animation history. But yeah, and of course that movie I'm talking about is the 2017 Woody Woodpecker movie, which, yes, it is a horrible movie. It is a movie that is obnoxious, it's annoying, it's everything bad with kids' movies, and when I watched this movie for the main channel, I had no idea that it was going to be one of my most popular videos. In fact, even to this day, I'm actually looking at the statistics on this video right now from my channel, and it's still getting over 50 views to this very day. Like, it's still one of my most watched videos. In fact, I'm looking at it right now, 202 views over the last 2 days. Like, this is unexpectedly one of my most popular videos, and it's just, I have no idea why that is. I mean, this is one of my most popular videos, and it baffles me why that is, because that was very early on in my my regular YouTube video career, and I had no idea that video was going to be as popular as it was. Like, over 1,100 views to this point in time. It's, like I said, it's still one of my most popular videos, and I'm just baffled why that is. But then again, like, if you saw the video, then you probably know exactly what I'm talking about, because that movie, if you're a Woody Woodpecker fan, that movie is absolutely abysmal. It is one of the worst pieces of garbage you will ever see in your life. So, obviously, when Woody Woodpecker Goes to Camp was announced, I think a lot of us were wondering, why are you releasing this? I mean, I get Woody Woodpecker's a popular character in Brazil, but why should I get excited for this? And then the trailer came out, and then it's just like, wait a minute. That's Buzz Buzzard. That's Wally Walrus. They're voiced by really good voice actors. Woody Woodpecker doesn't seem as obnoxious as he does in the last movies. The human characters actually acknowledge these cartoon characters as real people in this movie. Like, I'm not expecting a great thing from this, but I was just like, I'm actually kind of intrigued with what I want to see here. And sure enough, I watched the movie, and I gotta say, it's not a great movie. It definitely has a lot of flaws to it, but at the same time, I actually kind of I enjoyed it. Like, I'm not going to say it's a masterpiece by any means necessary. It's not going to be a movie where I say, like, you gotta see this movie. I mean, you gotta see this masterpiece that is Woody Woodpecker Goes to Camp. And it's just like, no, I'm not going to say that. But you know what? I am going to say that it's a movie that surprised me in a number of different ways, for the fact that you could tell that this movie was written by people and directed by people, created by people that know why Woody Woodpecker is so special and what makes him so funny. I mean, when this movie is Woody Woodpecker and the characters from the cartoons, it's a great fun time. Like, you can go into it watching and just like, I'm not going to say this is, like I said, not a classic by any means, but when it's these characters, they really are funny, and they've got a lot of good voice talents in here. Like Eric Bauza, I always thought was a good Woody Woodpecker. I think the biggest problem with him in the first movie was that every line he read, it looked like he was reading it off a line of porta potty. Like, he was like, you can hear like the echo inside of his voice whenever he's doing the voice in that first movie. But here, it sounds a whole lot better. It doesn't feel like it actually sounds like it's in a recording booth. And like him, you got Buzz Buzzard, Kevin Michael Richardson, who really does a good job. I thought it was Mark Hamill again, like he was in the 90s Woody Woodpecker cartoon. But no, it's Kevin Michael Richardson, and he's very good handling that. And he does a very good job of making that his own character, too. And, like, Tom Kenny as Wally Walrus, like, it's great to see those characters back in a movie like this, where they're actually given an opportunity to show, hey, Woody Woodpecker can be funny, because when it's those characters on screen, this movie works. It's surprisingly fun. When it's the human characters, it's not the worst, but it certainly isn't what you expect from a movie like this. I mean, it's nothing too spectacular. They have some pretty bigger names in this movie than they did in the last film. You got Josh Lawson from House of Lies and also Mortal Kombat, and then Mary Louise Parker was in this movie. I had no idea she was in this film. Like what are they doing in this movie? And sure enough, they're the few actors that are carrying the load of this film. And the slapstick overall is very solid with the animated characters. I like the fact that the cartoon characters are there to just be, they're there to essentially be, like, they're not seen as pariahs. They're there like they're part of normal society, and I thought that was kind of amusing. I did all this without telling you what the plot of this movie was, but it's really not anything too significant. After getting kicked out of the force, Woody thinks he's found a forever home at Camp Woohoo until an inspector threatens to shut down the camp. And to make things difficult, an escaped convict named Buzz Buzzard poses as the rival camp's chef to rob a hidden treasure. And, so the story itself is nothing too generic. It's nothing too spectacular, is what I'm trying to say. It's a pretty generic storyline, but when the humor works with the cartoon characters involved, it works fine. I really came out of this movie glad I saw it. I was really not going into it with a whole lot of expectations for it, except that I was intrigued of what they were going to do with the characters involved here. But it reminded me so much of the 2021 Tom and Jerry movie, which I thought was good. It has a lot of the same problems, too. The cartoon character moments are the best parts of that movie. When it's the human characters, not so much. It's definitely not as good. And, there's definitely a lot of similarities to this movie and the Tom and Jerry movie. And I like both of these movies a lot. I really like the Tom and Jerry movie a lot, and mostly because of the stuff with Tom and Jerry in it. When Tom and Jerry can be Tom and Jerry, that's when the movie is great. When Woody Woodpecker can be Woody Woodpecker in this movie, that's when the movie is fun. It's a entertaining film. I'm not going to say that it's going to change people's minds on Woody Woodpecker as a whole, but it should really make people want to see these characters in those classic cartoons again. I'm really glad to see that the cartoons are making somewhat of a comeback. MeTV shows them on Saturday mornings. You can find these cartoons anywhere online. There's compilations on YouTube all over the place that are very much worth it. I would highly recommend going to check those out, because it's a mixture of the classic cartoons from the 40s and 50s mixed in with the newer episodes from the 90s show, which is criminally underrated. Billy West is greatest Woody Woodpecker on that show. And I was glad to see it. If I had to give a review for it, I would probably give it a marginal a mixed review. Like I said, when it's Woody Woodpecker and the cartoon characters, it's fun. When it's everything else, it's not bad, but it certainly isn't enough to really totally recommend the movie. If you want to, I would say see this movie if you want to see what Woody Woodpecker's capabilities are in modern day. I give it a mixed opinion. My thumb would usually be right in the middle. So it's not a thumbs up, it's not a thumbs down. It's somewhere in the middle, which for this type of film, especially compared to the last movie, that's a huge improvement on this particular film. So I do recommend Woody Woodpecker Goes to Camp. It's available to watch on Netflix. I'd say definitely check it out. It's a good fun time. So with that said, that's going to wrap up this truncated episode of the Reviewing Network Live. And I will have a full episode again next week. let's hope we can actually get some stories to talk about. Okay, I don't know. I just got this feeling that they had all the big stuff for CinemaCon last week. I think next week might be a slow week for news, but we'll see what happens. But if you like what you saw and you want to see more of these episodes, check out our hit the like and subscribe button. Check out our playlist to see some of the other videos we do. We do videos like this. We do trailer reactions. We do clipless versions of Time About the Movies, the show on the main channel. So we do contribute a lot of stuff here every single day. So there's always new stuff every single day. Definitely check it out. So thank you for watching and listening. I will see you guys next week. So until then, thanks for listening and watching. I'll see you next time. Until then, we are out.